There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Ripp, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
Hey, is that what they call him?
Yes.
Riper?
That's what I believe.
He's some chief,
Ripper.
some. There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Ripp, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
Hey, is that what they call him?
Yes.
Riper?
That's what I believe.
He's some chief
Ripper.
something officer for some Bitcoin poker. There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Ripp, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
Hey, is that what they call him?
Yes.
Good morning. It is the morning after week 2 of NFL football. And it is Monday, September the 16th. And it is good to be back. My name is Michael Rippey. You know, I love to host the shows with the most. We got great guests today. We got a great morning of talking football. And football was played starting with Thursday. We didn't get a Friday game this week, but we got a ton of Sunday games. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to break it all down for you over the next hour and a half with my guys, Terrell Bush, obviously back after a fantastic week one performance. I would rate his week one performance kind of the way that we're seeing Sam Darnold play. That's his way of communicating. Terrell, he's going to have a lot to share with us this morning as we get him on the program in just about 7 minutes. Then we're going to have fantasy football talk at 8:15 Pacific, 11:15. You could see it all on the scrolling bottom line. We got my guy Sleazeball Fantasy Football. My mind is a weapon. One of the best in the business, puts out more content than I know any human to put out. And a lot of it is really good. Big 49ers guys, so we'll have to talk to him about what's going on in San Francisco with Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, Brock Purdy. Some interesting things I want to dive into. But remember, as we get going here, we're streaming live to X. We're streaming live on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following on X so you don't miss the show every Monday morning and all the stuff that comes out during the week, whether it's from myself or some of the best stuff I've found around the world on social media and in content creation. Now, we are still in discussions and looking for a title partner and sponsor of the program. So if you are watching and you want to be a part of the morning after football Monday mornings or stuff during the week, hit me up, let me know, let the team know, and we will hopefully in the upcoming weeks have something to announce. Now, before that, we're also streaming live, I think this week, to Instagram Live, still working through how to get this onto more platforms. The show that is bringing you all the football you need in the morning on Mondays. What could be better all fall throughout the year 2024? It was a wild week two. A lot was different from week one. We thought we knew a lot of things, and now we don't necessarily know if we know anything, right? But we're going to talk about it. Make sure you are following me at Michael Rippey on X. I am the host of The Morning After, and it is a pleasure. Now, this show is just like the Mannycast. It won't necessarily be every single Monday morning, but it will be most of them. And it will certainly be back next week. We're locked in for week 3 of NFL next week. So if you're excited, you're listening, you're watching, and you go, uh-oh, it's not back next week. Don't worry. I'm back next week with a whole nother set of great guests talking real and fantasy football on X, YouTube, and hopefully Instagram Live. Maybe we'll break in to LinkedIn, Facebook, all this stuff. Taking it one week at a time here at Rippey Sports. Now, here's the thing, guys. Week 2 is interesting because it was different from week 1. And here's my main takeaway as we look at some of the stuff in week 1. And I'll go through some of the interesting things that I know. But week one didn't really have the same level of what we saw in week 2, and that's injuries. And it wouldn't be right if I didn't start with the Thursday night game where we saw another scary injury for Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, you see the Dolphins jerseys in the background. That is the team that I've, enjoyed since the childhood. It's never really worked out, but it makes talking NFL and everything that goes on in the football world a little easier because I don't have too many expectations. And you know what? One expectation I don't have when it comes to football is seeing guys down on the field with serious injuries. And by that, I mean concussions. And by that, I mean players that have consistent concussions. And that's Tua. And unfortunately, we saw it again. It was reminiscent of 2022. Miami played Cincinnati, and Tua had a terrible injury. They had to cart him off the field, helmet taken off, and with the face mask. And not a good scene for anybody watching football. You hate to see it. And you wonder, what does that mean for Tua going forward? Well, I just want to end with this really around the Tua conversation. Ultimately, it's not my choice. It's not anyone watching the program. It's not anyone watching football's choice to tell Tua what he should do. We can suggest, everyone has their suggestions, but I don't feel comfortable trying to tell another person how they should live their life and do what they love. And obviously, Tua loves football. You would love to see Tua know how to slide, not take these hits that cause these concussions if he can avoid them. And you want him to be safe. You want everyone's health. You want everyone to not be injured. But the biggest thing in NFL is it is a game. there's nothing worse than seeing a player injured, whether they're on your fantasy team, they're your favorite player, they're on the opposing team. You just don't want to see it. You want to see competition amongst the best, and you want everyone to be out there. So I'm not going to tell you that Tua should retire. It looks like Tua has already come out, or sources are saying he's getting the help he needs around what he should do next, but he's not going to retire. And I don't believe I should tell him he should retire. I don't actually, quite frankly, think he should retire or should not retire. I leave it to him to make his own decisions. He's a man. He gets to do what he loves. And I'm not going to tell someone they shouldn't be able to do what they love, whether or not that's safe or not. It's up to him to make those decisions. And so people can suggest, but I feel like when people come out very strongly about you should or shouldn't do this, it's not really your place to tell another human being what they should do with their life, especially when what they're doing with their life is what they love. So you just want them to be safe. And obviously the number of concussions is continuing to grow. And we've seen what that can do to, players and individuals as they move on in their life 10, 20, 30 years down the road. But now, one thing I would suggest is hopefully Tua can be one of the first players out there. I know someone has already done it, but wearing a Guardian cap. Anything that can help protect him a little bit more, that would be a suggestion I would make. Obviously, learning to slide can help, but maybe the Guardian cap and any other type of techniques that can maybe limit the potential for concussions would be helpful. But you hate to see it, and hopefully Tua takes the time necessary, comes back if that's what he wants to do when he is fit, and hopefully he doesn't have any more concussions. It's not just Tua with the concussions. Lots of players getting concussions, though. So everybody, getting concussions, anyone should be considering what the Guardian cap looks like, because it doesn't matter if it's not as cool. It's about safety. And so safety is paramount. Speaking of the injuries, we're going to move off of Tua and the big news on Thursday night. Move to the injuries during the Sunday games, because there was a lot of them, and a lot of them to big players. Just off the top, Cooper Kupp left the Rams game. Don't have a complete diagnosis, but he left in a walking boot. Justin Jefferson had a quad injury. Isaiah Pacheco looks like he broke his fibula. He could be out for a while. I know a fibula takes a while to recover. He could be out for the season, maybe at least 2-3 months. I'm not the doctor here, but there's been a number of major injuries to Vita Vea. And I can keep going down the list. We're going to break down some of these injuries, but a lot of injuries in week 2. And that just brings me to this point. It is the NFL. It is football. If there's one thing you can be sure of, there is a lot of uncertainty. There is a certainty in the injuries. There's going to be a lot of injuries. And that means it's important to understand who is on the roster, not just on the first 11 guys on offense, the first 11 guys on defense, but the rest of the team. You got 53 men starting, dressed every week to play. And NFL teams need all 53 plus their practice squads and more, because those depth players that you don't know today or you're not paying attention to, now, those are the guys you're going to pay a lot of attention to either tomorrow, the next week, and so on. And that's how teams really, they really not just survive, but thrive. It's the teams that have the players that break out, that become household names moving forward. So we saw a lot of injuries in week 2. We're going to talk all about it this week. I hope there's not too many injuries next week in comparison, because I thought there was a lot of high-end injuries this week. But depth is the key. That's my biggest takeaway from week 2 is know who's on your roster. Whether it's fantasy, you want to know who's the guys that's going to be the new stars. But also, if you're a fan, know who's playing in the backup roles and seeing who comes in and makes a name for themselves with the opportunity they are given because of the injuries. Quickly, I mentioned some of these guys, but I want to give you the leaders right now. After 2 weeks of football, and granted, we have a Monday night football game tonight. That will be the Atlanta Falcons trying to get their first victory with Kirk Cousins. They are 0-1. They play the Philadelphia Eagles tonight, who were awesome in Brazil. Can they still be awesome in America? We'll find out tonight on Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins on one end, Jalen Hurts on the other. Saquon Barkley, after a sterling debut for the Eagles where he had 3 touchdowns, takes the field again. We'll see how Saquon plays. But if you take out the Atlanta Falcons and Philadelphia Eagles, we have 9 undefeated NFL teams. There are 9 teams left that remain 2-0. The most surprising, maybe the Minnesota Vikings, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some interesting 2-0 teams, interesting teams that are 2-0 because of different reasons. Trying to look around the league and say who's dominant at 2-0. hard to say. You don't really see it. I guess the Houston Texans, not dominant, but not surprising that they're 2-0. And some other 2-0 teams. But again, 9 2-0 teams after tonight's game. If Philadelphia does win, we will have 10 undefeated teams remaining after 2 weeks. That number will dwindle and dwindle quickly. I want to break down some of the box score breakdown in this a little bit later, but it's time to welcome the man. He was here in week 1. It's one of the most knowledgeable NFL guys I know. I love talking football. I love talking sports with him because he brings it. He always gives you something to think about. He was here last week. We welcome him back for week 2. We're talking football with my man, Terrell Bush.
Rip, how you doing, man? Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Thanks for coming back. It's always good to have you and chop it up talking NFL. It was an interesting week, too. I just broke down some of the injuries. There's a lot to get to. I want to just start first. Where can people find you and give us a little bit about your background?
All right, guys. How you guys doing? My name is Terrell Bush. As always, as you guys saw me last week, originally me and Rip have met on the Live Take Sports app, and we are bringing our content now to all of the streaming platforms that you guys are viewing us on now. So my name is, like I said, my name is Terrell Bush. You can find me on Twitter at TerrellBush05, and you'll also probably see my work Twitter account at Terrell Bush NFL. You can follow me on there. Posting a lot of columns starting this year, posting a lot specifically on the Philadelphia Eagles, as I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, but just ready to get everything going, ready to get the show going, and ready to kick off week 2 with you right here, Rip.
My man. All right, perfect. As you see, you can see his Twitter account right there, Terrell Bush 05. Make sure you give him a follow. As he said, you got a resident Philadelphia Eagles fan, and what better time to have an Eagles fan on than on Monday when the Eagles will play on Monday Night Football. And quite frankly, if you're doing a power rankings or something, granted, it's been 1 week, you got to put the Eagles right there near the top. So let's wait on the Eagles game. We'll talk about Monday Night Football a little bit towards the end, but we saw Thursday night game, disappointing stuff with the injuries and stuff and the concussion too. I don't really rehash all that too much, but Sunday, lots of football, more football this Sunday than last Sunday because we had everything on Sunday, not mixed in on Friday and so forth. What's your biggest takeaways from week 2 NFL?
Man, well, just piggybacking off what you started off with, the injuries, right? There's been a lot of key injuries to a lot of star players this year. Just going off of what you said, Tua Tagovailoa, who's in concussion protocol. He's meeting with neurologists this week via Adam Schefter. And so we'll see, he's been diagnosed with 4 concussions since his days dating back to college at Alabama. We saw a lot of his injuries piling up throughout his time. So, it's sad to see, with Tua, we wish for the best for him. We hope for the best. And moving forward, it says that he plans to not retire. So we'll see where that goes. But I hope they thoroughly go into his concussion protocol and see what they can do moving forward. Like you said, guardian caps may be something that they can look into moving forward to try to help, negate that a little bit. But going into the injuries just a little bit more to some of the key players around the league. Christian McCaffrey, we saw, was placed on injury reserve. He's missing in the next 3 weeks with a calf and Achilles injury. Puka Nacua, PCL injury, man. He's missing, could possibly miss the next 5 to 7 weeks. A.J. Brown, sadly, has been downgraded to out tonight with a hamstring injury. On Friday, he said his hamstring got a little tight in practice, and according to Nick Sirianni, he was sidelined during Saturday's session, and originally he was questioned as questionable, but now it seems like he'll be ruled out tonight, which is sad for us, but we'll see how that goes. We'll dive a little bit more into that moving forward. Evan Ingram was downgraded to out yesterday during a hamstring injury during the practice, during pre-game rituals yesterday. He was ruled as out. T. Higgins was out. We know his situation. Russell Wilson, of course, and Isaiah Pacheco, like you said this morning, a fibula injury. That's something that can be tricky. Somebody coming off. I was one that had 2 fractured collarbones, so I know a fibula that's more damage to the collarbone area, shoulder area. So he's expected to be placed on IR. So it's just a lot of guys we're seeing that have been injured, a lot of star players that we wish were on the field. But my biggest takeaway is, man, I hope that these guys can get healthy back on the field. And these are key guys to their teams, and we see directly their impact is how it's playing out on their teams thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, clearly these high-end injuries affect not just the teams that they're affecting, but the games that you're watching, and specifically, as I mentioned, the depth. Start to know who's your second wide receiver, third wide receiver, other positions, because these are game-changing type of injuries. And we know in NFL, injuries happen all the time. It's going to continue to happen. That's how we get new stars all the time. But you mentioned a lot of high-end injuries this season. Okay, injuries aside, I want to just dive into some of the different things we saw in week 2. Specifically, something different we saw in week 2 was we saw a breakout game from rookie Marvin Harrison Jr. Week 1, non-existent, right? We saw a video, I even posted it, of him being wide open down the field, and yet Kyler in the post-game said he wasn't his job to throw him the ball. Well, apparently either someone talked to Kyler or Kyler's taking his job more seriously, because Kyler threw Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball, and he threw it to him a lot, and he made a lot of big plays in week 2. What's your thoughts on what we saw from the Cardinals? Because Kyler looked incredible, Marvin Harrison Jr. looked incredible, and the Cardinals looked incredible.
Well, look, piggybacking off what you said, right? Marvin Harrison, 130 receiving yards, right? He beat his pops, got one up on his pops, because his dad's rookie career high was 106 yards in 1996. So it just goes to show you, and he has a little bit of bragging rights this year to talk on his dad, only in week 2, but we're able to see the impact. And you saw it directly in the first quarter where he went off. And like we said last week, where was this? They could have, like you said, you posted a video last week and we all saw Marvin Harrison Jr. and how wide open he was and going towards the end zone. And it's like, we were talking about him pre-draft too, Rip, on how dynamic of a player he is. And for Kyler to state that, but then go into the game and directly throw him the ball early and get him involved early shows you how dynamic and how prolific this guy is, man. He was a game changer, and you saw it early, and you saw it early, and you saw it often. But honestly, the Cardinals didn't even need to continue to target him, because they were already going away with it. We saw Kyler Murray going 17 for 21, 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's showing exactly where he left off prior to his ACL injury, and he is taking off. And the Arizona Cardinals, it could have closely been 2-0, if it wasn't for a couple misplays here and there last week against Buffalo. So, this week coming off of, and we see James Conner getting involved with 21 carries, 122 yards and a touchdown. Hey, fantasy holders, I know James Conner is, I hope you guys are looking at James Conner, because you guys should have peeped it last year as well with his success that he had on the field. But it's been great to see the Arizona. It was great to see them yesterday on a 41-10 win. And I'm excited to see what the Cardinals have moving forward, man. I didn't expect them to come out as hot as they've been, but that offense is moving. And if they target Marvin Harrison more, I'm telling you, great results will happen.
I think you're absolutely right. You mentioned not just Marvin Harrison Jr. beating his pops in week 2 already with the rookie, family rookie record. James Conner, incredible. I mean, James Conner looked incredible in week 1, looked even better in week 2, and it was like Arizona called it off. I mean, Kyler sat after a period. They could have put on more points. They could have done more than 41-10 drubbing of the LA Rams. And they're a team immediately you have to take seriously, because when you start to think back to week 1 and you saw what Buffalo did and thinking Arizona was in Buffalo and could have won that game, Arizona looks like a real contender this season out west that has weapons. They've got players, and they've got opportunity to make some noise this season. We saw it in week 2, and I'm excited to continue to see it as we move forward. After we move away from that big Arizona performance, any other performances you want to talk about that we just saw this weekend?
Hey, man, I do want to highlight a player that has had a lot of question marks going into this season, and it's coming off of a good game yesterday, a 2-0 start to a season. And I want to just touch on Justin Fields. He didn't have big numbers yesterday, didn't have huge numbers yesterday, but did what needed to do to win the game. He went 13 for 20 for 117 yards, a touchdown, 8 carries for 27 yards. And he's the only other starting quarterback outside of Josh Allen to not have a turnover this year. So it seems as if we're seeing some of the flip side that we saw from Chicago. Now we're seeing him in Pittsburgh, and we're seeing a completely different version of Justin Fields than we saw early with the Chicago Bears. And I mean, we could see some of the struggles that Caleb Williams are having thus far. And it's kind of, was it specifically the quarterback, or was it the system that they were placed in? We pretty much seen that as well with the difference in number 1 and number 2 overall picks from last season in Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. It's all about where you get placed. And we talked about it last week also with Baker Mayfield and his performance and just the upbringing that another situation can bring to him. And we're seeing it today. So yesterday, there were a few plays that were called back from Justin Fields' performance as well. He easily could have passed for 200 plus and 2 touchdowns. There was a touchdown to George Pickens on the left side. the end zone that was called back for a holding, and a deep shot to Pickens that went for 51 plus yards, and it was called back on a rollout to going right, and he threw a long deep ball to George Pickens on the right side. I think Pat Surtain was also on him, but it was a beautifully placed ball. We're seeing Justin Fields get the ball out of his hands quickly. We're seeing him, he's 14 for 14 on throws in 2.5 seconds. So we're seeing the flip side of what we saw in Chicago with him getting the ball out of his hands fast, quick, and easy and on point. So, hey, I just want to highlight Justin Fields just because he had a lot of scrutiny in the offseason. There was the quarterback battle between him and Russell Wilson, but he's fully taken advantage of his opportunity there in Pittsburgh.
I was going to go there next, honestly. I mean, when you think about Pittsburgh being one of those 2-0 teams, you have to give credit to Justin Fields for getting the necessary thing done, by not making the mistakes, by leading the team and doing what you need to do to win. And it leads me to this question because, Justin Fields he didn't win the starting job. Russell Wilson did, but then Russell's hurt. And now Justin Fields, whether it's the defense making the plays, Justin Fields just doing enough. My question to you is Justin Fields going to remain the starter until he loses? Does Russell just get the job because he's healthy? What do you think happens for week 3?
I think they should roll with the hot hand. Why would you change something? If it's not broke, don't fix it. That's a quote that a lot of people I know have heard. And it's like, why would you remove a guy that the team is clearly rallying behind? He's playing towards the strength of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Don't mess up, pretty much. Don't mess up. Get the ball out of your hands quickly. Get it on point and on time. And I feel like those are some of the things that Russell Wilson kind of struggled with. We saw him in Denver last year. We saw him with Sean Payton. And Sean Payton is a guy who coming up had Drew Brees as his quarterback. And you saw the success that they had. But why did they have success? It's because Sean Payton likes his quarterbacks to get the ball out of their hands quick, fast, and on point. And Russell Wilson is more of a guy that likes to create. He likes to roll out. He likes to use his athleticism, but he doesn't necessarily have that athleticism to his ability anymore. So the ball wasn't coming out as quick. He wasn't as on point. But last year, it wasn't a super down year. But at the same time, I think coming into the training camp and what we've seen and the differences between the two, I just think Justin Fields is at a point in his career where he wants it. He's going out there and showing that it's not just his legs that can get the job done. And ultimately, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-0 because of it.
One of the 9 2-0 teams in the NFL, and Justin Fields has been a reason why, even if it's also the defense. It'll be interesting to see what they do in Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh seems to always know how to get those W's, even when you think it's not their year. They're struggling. They've got issues. And look, there they are, 2-0, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we continue, I want to take a second to thank everybody listening, watching, streaming, wherever, whatever platform. We've got 200 viewers throughout the program so far, and I appreciate everyone for tapping in. If you do have questions, you can drop them in the comments. We'll try to take them at any point during the program.
Can we just talk about a couple more performances from yesterday?
Of course we can. We're going to get there. I'm going to give you the floor in 1 second. I wanted to make this note because I didn't get it off before welcoming you in, by the way. If you don't know who the leaders are, I just want to give you, it's early, but your passing leader right now, Brock Purdy, 550 yards. Your rushing leader, J.K. Dobbins, 266 yards rushing over 2 weeks. And your wide receiver with the most yards after week 2, from weeks 1 and 2, Nico Collins with 252 yards. Not sure many people would have said Purdy, Dobbins, and Collins leading the league in their respective yardage category. Wanted to get that out. But let's go to the other takeaways, talking points that you have.
Let's do it, Rip. So let's go down to Dallas. Dallas yesterday, the New Orleans Saints, man. Yeah, last week I had spoke on the Saints. And of course, we didn't want to take too much away from their season opener against Carolina. But I also mentioned that dating back to last season against the Atlanta Falcons, they put up 48 points. And Derek Carr had thrown for 264 yards and 4 touchdowns. Well, we come this week, going down to Big D. Dallas, on a 16-game home regular season win streak. And the New Orleans Saints bring their A game to town and blow those guys right out the door. Derek Carr, 11 for 16, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. But Alvin Kamara, man, he had himself a day, 22 touches, 180 yards, and 4 touchdowns, man. It was Derek Carr's best total QBR in any game via ESPN. So it just shows how prolific that offense is, man. And it kind of goes towards the trend. This is 3 straight games of plus 40 points from that offense. So it seems like that offense is gelling. They started out the season going 15 straight possessions, 15 straight scores. So I don't know what's going on down there in New Orleans, but I could tell you one thing, man, they are scoring in bunches, and it's fun to see. And it was surprising to see how Dallas still has some of the lingering problems that they had last year going into this year. Dallas defense is susceptible to the run game and the play action pass. We saw that in the postseason last year with Jordan Love. We saw him, and we just saw how dynamic they were able to be coming off the play action, developing that run game, establishing a run game, going downhill. And it seemed like Dallas still is susceptible to those things. So, they allowed 15.2 yards per attempt through the air and 134 yards before contact behind the line of scrimmage. So it just goes to show you, man, Dallas defense, I don't know, Michael Parsons, sometimes I have an APB out for him, Rip. I can't lie. As an Eagles fan, maybe that's just my Eagles fandom. But at the same time, in the biggest moments, man, I don't know where that guy Michael Parsons is. He's one of the best defensive players in the game. But at the same time, let's watch him in the biggest moments, all right? I know he's a fantastic regular season performer, but watch him in the biggest moments. But going back to it, New Orleans, Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, great game.
Well, let me take a second on that. That's fantastic, because I think when you think about the most surprising 2-0 team, and I started to name some: Minnesota, Pittsburgh, you go to New Orleans and you say nobody had New Orleans 2-0. Maybe you had them against the Panthers. You're not that surprised. After week one, we're saying, well, it's the Carolina Panthers. That's easy. It doesn't even matter. It's a JV team, and so on and so forth. When you go into Dallas and just take over, like you said, Kamara, 4 touchdowns, Derek Carr looking like an MVP candidate, Rashid Shaheed. I mean, no one was talking about Shaheed at the level that he's performing. I mean, he looks like an absolute weapon across the board. And the Saints scored on their first 16 possessions of the season. Put that into context. The Saints scored points on their first 16 possessions through the first 2 weeks, which is incredible. This is a Dallas team with a new defensive coordinator in Mike Zimmer that's supposed to have this vaunted attacking, tough defense, especially in Dallas. And as you said, their win streak at home and all these things, and Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs, and then what do you get? You get just a mollywhopping by New Orleans in Dallas. And give it up to Clint Kubiak, because we can't name a coach of the year, but right now it might have to go to the coordinator, because whatever Clint Kubiak is doing down in New Orleans, whether it's all the beignets or something else, he's got it working all across the board offensively for the New Orleans Saints. And they are 2-0, and they look like a real threat to be a team that people were not talking about, that they should be talking about, and they will be talking about going forward. All right, I'm with you on the Saints. Good points on Micah. Micah catching strays on the show. Micah, you're always welcome to defend yourself in the future, but hey, my man T, he told you what's up. What else you got?
So let's go down. You spoke about a team. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings, man. One of the most surprising 2-0 teams. I know a lot of people coming into the season did not have the Minnesota Vikings, especially having the San Francisco 49ers in week 2 starting 2-0. But those boys down there in Minnesota, man, they brought their A game as well, man. Sam Darnold is somebody that is showing some promise in some fantasy leagues. I know one of my guys picked him up with some hope that he could potentially be something moving down the line. But it seems like Sam Darnold has settled in. Sometimes it changes scenery, and sometimes it takes multiple times to have that change of scenery. But it seems like that's helping him. In last year, specifically sitting in Kyle Shanahan's offense, he looks like a completely different player, and he has the talent around him to be something. With the Vikings picking J.J. McCarthy this year, we didn't necessarily expect Sam Darnold to be in a position that he's in. But with an injury to J.J. McCarthy and now Sam Darnold having the quarterback position to and of himself, he's showing in great fashion, as he went 17 to 26, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have a turnover, but this was the first time with more pass touchdowns in consecutive weeks since 2019. So it just goes to show you how much he's benefiting from this offense. And of course, when you have the top receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson going 4 catches for 133 yards, and I know we all saw that 97-yard touchdown, man. So A lot of help from the defense as well. You know, Purdy was sacked 6 times, and they limited San Fran to 2 of 10 on third down. So getting those guys off the field and giving Sam Darnold more time of possession and able to possess the ball longer at any point in time, that's gonna fare into the offensive team's standings. But it's great to see Minnesota, man. And hey, Sam Darnold and them boys got them boys 2-0, Rip.
Hey, Sam Darnold, give it up for him, man. He deserves it because not only he's got the boys 2-0, he did it against his former team. A lot of people said, "Oh, Sam Darnold," and I was one of them. I'm surprised by what I'm seeing, but I'm liking what I'm seeing. But Sam Darnold, Kyle Shanahan, he helps him, he does it. Now he did it against Kyle Shanahan. And the best part about the Justin Jefferson catch, 97-yard touchdown, was not just that Justin Jefferson caught a 50-yard bomb and then took it to the house. It was an electric play, game-changing play. If you have a chance, go back and watch the referee who has to get out of the way of Jefferson as he catches the ball and reverses course. But then the referee has to sprint faster than the defenders and Jefferson to the goal line to be there to call a touchdown. Incredible video, incredible play from Minnesota, game-defining, game-changing type of play. You saw what I'm talking about, right?
I saw exactly what you're talking about. And we could see that guy works out, man, because he had the full going, arms moving. He was looking good out there, Rip.
He was. That guy needs a deal. I heard the Dolphins might try to sign him because he's fast.
Hey, you guys could probably use him, man, because he had the Jets on.
He did.
They nicknamed Justin Jefferson Jettas, but he's got the Jets for sure.
Yeah, he took the Jettas to a whole new level. He put the Jettas on as he saw Justin, but incredible. But the one thing we do have to consider is Minnesota came in dinged up. They still performed. Jordan Addison doesn't play. We still know TJ Hawkinson on PUP list. Great tight end. Will be back at some point this season. You can imagine. And now Jefferson picks up a quad injury, says he's okay, says he's not going to miss time, and you hope that's the case. Aaron Jones picks up an injury. So we got to see what happens with Minnesota. But you can imagine if they can get their skill players healthy and everyone's there, this is a team behind Kevin O'Connell that can do damage and is a team that maybe people were sleeping on, writing off, especially once they lost J.J. McCarthy. You got to take somewhat seriously as we move forward. If you beat the 49ers home, road, you're a pretty good team because the 49ers are sort of the class of the NFC and have been for a little bit now. Let's continue going around. I want to hear some more of your thoughts on some of the biggest things that we can take away from week 2.
All right, well, let's go ahead and, one of my biggest surprises, I'm going to take it down. We were talking about a lot of the wins. Let's go to some of the losses and talk about Baltimore to start off. Baltimore going home after the Thursday night football game against the Kansas City Chiefs. We all saw that opening night game. It was a great game. It came down to the last couple seconds. And even though Kansas City won, we took away from it that, next week having the Raiders at home, we could expect a win in that regard. And according to the most popular bet via ESPN Eliminator Challenge, week 1 was the Bengals, and we know they lost to the Patriots, and week 2 was the Ravens. So it just goes to show you that maybe, you can't always trust the Eliminator, but at the same time, what's going on in Baltimore? So let's dive into it a little bit. Baltimore at home against the Ravens, 26-23. They are 0-2 for the 5th time in franchise history. It came down to the final possession again, but it just goes to show you what is the identity with the Baltimore Ravens. What are they necessarily? We know Lamar Jackson is a prolific player, one of the best players we've ever seen, a 2-time MVP. But what is their identity? And I felt like coming into the season, they addressed that with acquiring Derrick Henry. But are they leaning on the run more? You would think so, no, right? But no. Derrick Henry, in the final 10 minutes in both losses to start the season, he's touched the ball 3 times in the last 10 minutes of both games. So it just goes to show you when you're up, you have a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. Why aren't you leaning on that run? Now, where's the flexibility on offense? When Derrick Henry is in the game, they're stacking the box a little bit more because they understand that, okay, we know Derrick Henry's in the game, so you're going to run the ball. But when they bring in Justice Hill, their backup running back, it seems like they're more pass friendly. So it's just a little bit more of diversifying the playbook a little bit when Derrick Henry's in the game. So it's not just predominantly, okay, we know Derrick Henry's in, we're going to run the football. Even though he had 84 yards on 18 carries and a touchdown, and he also had some through the air, it just goes to show you they need to they need some flexibility in that offensive playbook, and they need to utilize him a little bit more, maybe in the passing game, to kind of diversify things a little bit.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I would say this: the most surprising thing is that not only are the Ravens 0-2, it was the Raiders. They had a 10-point lead in the fourth. You do not expect a Baltimore team coached by John Harbaugh, quarterbacked by Lamar Jackson, with Derrick Henry, to give that up. And that's going to be one of those losses later in the season that could come back to haunt Baltimore. And finally, it's John Harbaugh 0-2. And if you go out to LA, his brother, Jim Harbaugh, returns to the NFL and has the Chargers 2-0. So interesting how Jim is 2-0, John is 0-2. The Harbaugh brothers together are 2-2. But good point. A little bit more time, and I want to.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, not too much time. I want to dive into Monday Night Football after, but yeah, finish your thought.
Okay, I was just going to speak on the Ravens defense a little bit and how we saw the AFC North. We wouldn't expect the Steelers and the Browns to be 1-2 in that division, and the Bengals and the Ravens to be 3-4. But right now, the Steelers are 2-0, and the Bengals and the Ravens are 0-2. So definitely a flip that we didn't see coming.
I think you're absolutely right on the flip. Something we didn't see coming, and this is the NFL. You expect the unexpected. This is the unexpected, and it's happening. I guess sometimes you want to expect it, but yeah, the Ravens, they gotta get on the board. I listened to a ton of recaps and some summaries of the week, and some interesting stats around the 0-2 teams and how many make the playoffs from 0-2. You'd be surprised that I think only 3 teams, maybe 4, have made the playoffs starting 0-2 over the last period of time. So it's not something that happens often. So, we're looking at the list of 0-2 teams and you're going, Baltimore 0-2. Can they make it? Cincinnati 0-2. And you say, well, it's going to be a tough slug to get there. You certainly can't go 0-3. So now it's like, you got to win your next games. You got to get the ship right. It doesn't matter who you were playing. It's worse, I think, when you look at Baltimore and you go, Baltimore, you're playing the Raiders. You expect that as a W when you look at the schedule. The Bengals, at least you can say, you know what? It was the Chiefs. We were close. We could have won. We should have won. It doesn't make it better. It's still a loss. But that's going to be interesting to see how it breaks down.
Definitely. 100%. 100%.
All right. You're Mr. Philadelphia Eagle. It's your squad. They looked incredible in week 1 as they defeated Green Bay. Their acquisition and free agent signing of Saquon looked like we got the Saquon Barkley everybody wants to see weekly, who we expected coming out of college, who was awesome for periods in New York. And he was awesome in week 1. But that was in Brazil. The question I have is, can Philadelphia show up in the States as they will tonight, play their first game on the soil? What do you think? What's your keys to look for? And give us a little breakdown of tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Atlanta Falcons and Philadelphia Eagles.
Definitely. So season opener for the Philadelphia Eagles at home at Lincoln Financial Field, 8:30 tonight. Some of my keys, man, I know A.J. Brown is out, but at the same time, we didn't stack up the offense the way we did for one player to go out for us not to be able to show up and show out. So I expect big games still from Saquon Barkley for sure. 100%. I expect a big game from Saquon Barkley. I probably could see him north of 20 carries tonight, giving him the football, 20 touches, I should say, total. He'll probably get around 20 to 25 touches, get him involved in the offense early and often. Devontae Smith, even though he's going to have a tough matchup against AJ Terrell Jr. over there in ATL. But I think Devontae Smith, man, he steps up and he steps out big time when his number is called. Dallas Goedert is somebody also that I think will have a good day as well. So just look to see in the trenches as well, our offensive line, Saquon Barkley, like I said, running the football. But defensively, Kirk Cousins and those Atlanta Falcons, they have a lot of playmakers on their offense, with Bijan, and we got a bunch of other dudes on that offensive side, Drake London, Pitt, and those guys over there. So we'll see how they're able to stack up against that. What I'm looking for defensively is how do we hold up on the back end. Last week we had crucial plays in the offense from the defensive line play and the linebacker play. We'll see how those guys can stack up against them. But in the back end, I want to see how our secondary can hold up against those talented players out there in Atlanta. But the secondary play from our defense and offensively, how can we maneuver and utilize our playmakers in Saquon Barkley, Devontae, Dallas Goedert, etc., without A.J. Brown being in the lineup?
Yeah, that's the key takeaway, right? Without A.J. Brown, how does this Philadelphia offense look? And then you go to Atlanta. They look terrible in week 1, but they have the playmakers across the board. They spent a lot of money at the quarterback position. And the reality is, if we don't see a good Kirk Cousins tonight, are we ever going to see a good Kirk Cousins in Atlanta? Because Michael Penix was drafted early, really early, number 8. A lot of offseason conversation around that. Maybe we're going to see Michael Penix in Atlanta before people know it. Tonight's going to be a big deciding factor on sort of what the future looks like for Atlanta. Right? We just talked about 0-2 teams. If Atlanta drops to 0-2, it's going to start to get real interesting real quick there. And I'm curious, you didn't mention one guy in the Eagles who I'm interested to see what he can do with A.J. Brown being out. They acquired late in the offseason Jahan Dotson, right?
Yes, sir.
From Washington. Now he's going to step into a more major role with A.J. Brown out. He could be a factor as well.
He definitely can be a factor because he had a good rookie season last season, and it was surprising to see him go from the Commanders when you having a rookie quarterback. You would think that you would keep all your guys in house, and they just drafted him last year. I don't know if there were some problems going on in the building that we may not know about, but for him to be able to come to us for what we gave up was pretty good for us to have him. So now tonight, like you said, unleashing him would be primary for him being our wide receiver 2 now, stepping up, and we'll see what it's all about with him as well, man. I'm excited to see how Jahan Dotson fits in this offense because I think Jalen Hurts will target him early.
I'm excited too for the game. It's Monday Night Football. If you're not excited for Monday Night Football, I don't know what you're excited about. It's always great. We got Aikman, we got Buck, we got a great call, we got great atmosphere, and it's going to be 2 NFC teams that had high expectations coming into the year facing off tonight. Big matchup. I'm excited.
And also, quickly, just speaking to your Kirk Cousins points. I know we're wrapping up soon, but with Kirk Cousins, like you said, he was a sitting duck last week. Like similar to what Aaron Rodgers, coming out. That Achilles injury. That's something you got to really be able to. If you're not confident in it, you're not going to want to move. And Kirk Cousins is someone that works primarily. He's a guy that likes to work off the play action, similar to Jared Goff. And if he's not able to get that, he was working a lot in the shotgun last week. And Pittsburgh was still able to get to him. We saw how T.J. Watt was able to impact the game. So tonight, does Philadelphia just put all their chips in the middle and say, you know what, we're going to go after him? Let's see early how Kirk Cousins. I want to put a key point here. Let's see early how Kirk Cousins looks. If he's primarily in the shotgun, I don't know if that's beneficial to the offense. They're going to air it out, but is he going to be a sitting duck? Who knows?
Yeah, and if he is a sitting duck, that doesn't bode well for the Falcons' chances, but something to pay attention to. And I'll just add this. We're watching Kirk Cousins. I mentioned it earlier about if Kirk doesn't show up, could we see Penix? I wouldn't be totally shocked if at least we see Penix in for a play or two or tonight. I don't know. Not hoping for it or not hoping for it, but something to monitor. Excited to see the Eagles because of how good they looked in week 1. To see if it carries over to week 2. They have an extra few days to prepare, so they should come out firing. I know no A.J. Brown, but they've got the players. They've got the team. They've got the pedigree and the history, and it should be a good one tonight, Monday night. We're going to get you out of here, T. It's always a pleasure having you. Any final things you want to share? Of course, you got to follow my man, Terrell Bush 05 on Twitter, cross platforms. He's back with us weekly, hopefully. As much more football we can talk with this man, the better we all are for it. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Rip. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate the audience, guys. Everybody watching. Thank you guys for watching, tuning in. We're going to continue to bring you guys great content, continue to digging into the X's and O's and bring you guys the best from things you may not have saw from Sunday so we can recap it on the morning after. Follow me here at Terrell Bush 05 on Twitter, and I'll be able to give you guys as much content as possible. Make sure you guys follow Rip and make sure you guys are following up with him, man. He brings great content every week. Rip, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate you, man.
Oh, man, it's always a pleasure. I think you're one of the best in the business, and you're going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue to grow this together. And your analysis and breakdowns really help myself and I think listeners understand what's coming forward. And tonight, best of luck to you and your Eagles. We will see you next week and in the future. Thanks for taking your time. Have a good one, bud.
See you, man.
So that is the man. Make sure you are following because he breaks down the NFL better than most. I love talking shop with my guy, Terrell Bush. He knows the NFL as good as others, and he brings the information that maybe you're not paying attention to. Always giving you key points, key details. Of course, following him on X at Terrell Bush is going to do better for you. That is our sort of real football breakdown this week, but a lot of you like to talk your teams. You like to talk about the fantasy life, the fantasy world, How'd you win? This is where you get to kind of be the general manager, the coach. And I love bringing the fantasy content as well. It's a lot of fun for all of us. And so obviously weekly, we're talking not just real football, but how does the real game affect your fantasy game and your fantasy teams? And this is a guy coming on here next who is just a joy to listen to read, because there is so much content coming out. I don't know how one man can put out so much so quickly, routinely. I'm not going to ruin it by saying his team didn't win this week, but that's for him to say. My man is coming on. You got to make sure to follow Sleaze. We're bringing in Sleaze. He's your resident 49ers fan, but you're also resident fantasy football analyst. Here he is, my guy, Sleazeball. Welcome to the program, my guy.
How we doing, Rip? Good show going this morning, man.
We all are struggling, right? I mean, look, you got 49er stuff. I got Dolphin stuff. It's a lot of losing going on, but we're winning right now being here together. And look, I know you do so much. I can't even spit it out all myself. Why don't you at least tell everyone what you do and where they can find everything that you're creating before we start breaking down fantasy?
So glad to be on the show. First time, amazing start. Your first guest was Terrell, was solid. He was on point with a lot of his points as well, too. I'm Sleazeball FF. You can find me like that across all fantasy football platforms. And My Mind is a Weapon is the podcast and the YouTube show. And I'm hoping to get you on there one day this week.
Sleaze, I love being on it, but make sure to tell us, how often does My Mind is a Weapon run and what times and so forth?
Oh, so I do all my content Monday through Thursday. I try to get all my rankings out, all my stardom, sit-ems, all my bounce back players, all my must start players. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm usually just tweeting and joining new shows.
Yeah, you are a man that's kind of everywhere, not just content wise, but on shows and putting it out there for the world to see. And one of the best parts about connecting and meeting you this summer in Las Vegas, we're lucky enough to be participating in the Scott Fish Bowl.
My team is done. Already done. 2 weeks in.
Yeah. Hey, fantasy, right? It's fantasy. Sounds like a fantasy clip. But
it is.
Point being, it was great to connect in person and be able to participate in that, but also just to start to read all your stuff. And anytime you're not able to be updated on something, if you just follow Sleazeball, you go to his page, you go to YouTube, you're going to be able to find whatever you need, whatever rankings, whatever late news. I mean, this guy does it all, and he does it all the time consistently and really well. So it's really a pleasure to have you on my show. But let's get into it. I mean, there's so much fantasy, obviously. We're week 2. You're talking about your team is done in one league. A lot of people probably feeling similarly or riding high, right? It's all over the landscape. So why don't you talk to us about sort of what you want to focus on starting-wise fantasy, because we can go anywhere.
So, I mean, first for me, it's Cooper Kupp. I have so much Cooper Kupp. Oh, did you freeze out? I don't know. I think Rip froze on me. But Cooper Kupp, for me, his injury is really scary. Walking off in the boot, I need the update ASAP. I have so much Cooper Kupp. Heading, is he gone?
I'm here.
Oh, you're here? Oh, you're froze on my screen. Let me refresh.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm
okay,
here.
I got you.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I'd say Cooper Kupp is a scary one. I'm saying I like the Dolphins pickup with Huntley. I want to see how that looks. They just signed him this morning. That's an interesting fact for your Dolphins to get to there. We could talk about how I've never seen George Kittle get carted off and come back and play. I think the NFL is getting ridiculous with these card off things from camp. My Niners shit the bed. How good Alvin Kamara looks. We can take it wherever you want.
All right, let's start with the 49ers, because they're obviously, we got jerseys hanging in the background. You got 49ers underwear on. I'm sure you got everything 49ers related. Let's start. Christian McCaffrey, obviously placed on IL, going to miss at least 4 weeks, including this week. But then there is the emergence of Jordan Mason, right? Here's a guy, looks good. What's your takeaway on what we're looking at from a 49ers offense? And then specifically, when you look at the wide receiver position, Brandon Ayuk held out for all this money. Maybe he should have just kept holding out, because he's not making the plays that would deserve the money that he was arguing for. So what's your takeaway on 49ers and what we're looking at fantasy-wise?
My takeaway on the 49ers is I think everything's going to be fine still in the receiving game. I did have Ayuk as don't start him this week. I don't think he's fully ramped up. I don't think he's back yet fully. I mean, he still looks kind of slow, even coming out of his breaks. I did not see Purdy throwing for 300-plus yards and the Vikings winning this game. I mean, I'll tell you that. I was a survivor pool with the Niners this week. So it's very rough on that end. Jordan Mason looks like a must start every single week. The guy's an absolute beast. Debo is showing up and showing out. His injury risk is going to scare me every single week. I mean, they're starting to give him carries. I can't stand it. Keep him out of the backfield, please. Defensive wise, I thought we kept us in the game, and our offense just didn't play good. I mean, we got the pick at the end to give us a chance, and it just crumbled, man. It didn't look anything like a Shanahan game. And what I'm worried about is when we fall behind and we can't come back on the Vikings, how's it going to look on other teams?
Well, speaking of the Vikings, let's move it there because we have a former 49er who leads the Vikings to beat you, and Sam Darnold, right? And there's a lot of talk around Sam Darnold coming into the season, and yet through 2 weeks looks pretty good. What was your kind of projection, not just in real but fantasy? How when you look at Sam Darnold and how he played?
I think he may be moving into my QB2 Superflex as a stardom QB. Although Justin Jefferson did break a 97-yarder. It's Justin Jefferson. You can't stop him. That really killed us. But now you got Jefferson banged up. You still got what's his name? I'm blanking. Addison banged up. You still got Hawkinson on IR, and now Naylor is stepping up, making a big time catch that beat us as well. I mean, I thought Sam Darnold would be seeing ghosts. I thought our coaching staff would have a better game plan against him because we know him, and it just didn't come to fruition.
Yeah,
but I'm worried about Jefferson if he doesn't play. I'm not starting Darnold.
Okay, so Darnold moving into Superflex category potential. Why QB2, but obviously important that Justin Jefferson plays. But you could imagine, let's say, if the Vikings can get healthy, they can add Addison. They can have that with Aaron Jones. And then you think about TJ Hawkinson when he comes back from PUP, he's one of the best tight ends in football. What that offense could actually look like after what we saw looks like Sam Darnold playing the right way, playing the mistake-free football, playing the winning football that we saw in week 2. Could be interesting.
I think he learned a lot from Shanahan's system because he looks 10 times better than he's ever looked.
Yeah, absolutely. And give credit to Kevin O'Connell. The guy is an offensive guru in his own right and has done pretty well. Yeah, you have to. Okay, let's move it across the landscape fantasy. I mean, we saw interesting fantasy performances. I want to go to Arizona because I've been, let's stick out west, right?
Maserati Marv.
Yeah, and we talked about this, right? And there's a lot of conversation around what happened in week 1, and Kyler doesn't need to throw him the ball, whatever. Week 2, whatever happened, we like it. It looked incredible from an Arizona's perspective. What's your takeaway?
I mean, the Cardinals are for real. I know their first game was kind of a blemish. We could say that, but the Buffalo defense also just shut down Miami with Tyreek and Waddle, even when Tua was out there. So, I mean, the Buffalo defense is something to be reckoned with, but these Cardinals just came out. Kyler Murray looked perfect, had his best QBR, I think, in his career in one game. Perfect QBR. Maserati Marv within 2 minutes had 30 points, dude. Oh, he looked like everyone's panic meter is over. It's done. You can throw that away.
That panic meter switch.
Touchdown on a fumble, though. I'll take the Trey McBride call on a fumble recovery. I mean, that was a nice pickup. But the Rams are beat up. So it's also kind of a two-way street here. Cooper Kupp goes down. Puka Nacua is out. The offensive line is missing 4 linemen. They're missing starting corners. So, I mean, is it that the Cardinals look that good, or is it the Rams just are falling apart? That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway. And also maybe it's both, right? Maybe that the Cardinals do look that good and are sort of that good offensively. And maybe the Rams are just not that good and pretty bad, especially when they pick up injuries. I mean, you look at Kyron Williams, Blake Corum got a lot of run this game comparatively. So we saw some different things. Cooper Kupp leaves injured. It's a lot painful for sure. A lot to consider what could be happening moving forward. Of course, it is one game, but you love to see Marvin Harrison do what a lot of people were projecting or hoping or expecting coming into the season. We didn't see week 1. We certainly saw it week 2.
I mean, if he hit him with that back shoulder fade, it would have been another one.
Another one. Exactly. Yeah, it could have been another one. He looked really good. And you love to see it if you were someone backing the Cardinals or Marvin Harrison. And one more player we didn't even touch on, and this is a guy that I was not as high as I should have been on, but James Conner, he looks great.
He looks absolutely great.
He looks great. Yeah. So, if you're someone that rosters James Conner or somewhere, you can look around your league and maybe someone is trying to sell him or you can get him. That's a guy that I would be looking at that could help you because James Conner has done it in both weeks. We've seen it in the past. And with this offense, the way it can hum mean, they dropped 41 on the Rams. They took out the starters. They could have put 60 on them. They look like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So look around that Arizona offense. You want shares of it, and Trey McBride gets that lucky fumble recovery touchdown. He hasn't even exploded yet. He's a guy that a lot of people have drafted high, high expectations. You can imagine he'll start to get in the end zone, catching the ball at some point here soon. And that Arizona offense is exciting. And then Kyler, best QB rating, as you said, of his career, one of his career days, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Nice. It was beautiful. You love to see Kyler and like that. And that's the thing about Kyler Murray. And I said this after week 1. Whatever it is, to me, Kyler Murray is one of the most exciting players to watch because it's it's an experience. It's just, you don't know necessarily if it's going good or bad, but it's going and it's fun to watch.
Go ahead. Let's say one thing I want to touch on would be, dude, Trey Benson had 11 carries for 10 yards against the backups. I mean, that does not look impressive for him.
It's not great, but that's even more reason to go get James Conner,
right?
And not Trey Benson. So let's actually stick out west while we're in the West. Let's go to Seattle.
Ooh,
right? Because DK Metcalf goes off. He gets, week 1, not great. Week 2, incredible. Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, I put out the stat. I looked through the box scores and stuff, and you got 2 guys with 10 plus catches, 100+ yards. That looks like it could be a dynamic duo with the way Geno Smith and that offense, is opening up. And any takeaways? And that's without Kenneth Walker, right? So
yes.
What do you think about the Seattle offense and fantasy wise? And any thoughts there?
I want all of them. I want all of them right now. I want Jay Season. I want DK. I want to buy Kenneth Walker off the injury because this offense, Ryan Grubb, is just touching the surface right now. This is just the beginning. I did not have Jay Season on this big of a game. I'll tell you that. He went absolutely bananas, and he looked electric when he's involved. So they're obviously going to get him more involved. I mean, 16 targets. Like what? Woo! From week 1, he had, 3? Like it was a complete game change turnaround. And I don't know if that's because K9's out. They focused him more. Charbonnet had kind of a decent day. And the Patriots defense is not a rollover defense like I thought it would be. So it's very impressive. I like to see Jalen Polk got involved on his 1 touchdown, I believe. He only had like 2 targets or 3 targets, but he got involved in the game. Ramondre, still a workhorse. I mean, but I don't like his schedule coming up. He's one of my sell highs. But yeah, I'm really excited for DK and JC's, and I thought Christian Gonzalez would play him a lot better, and he toasted him.
Yeah, he did. I think that even gives more credence to how good, when we've talked about this on shows, Patrick Surtain is. You see it when you start to break down the top cornerbacks in football, and you see what Patrick Surtain did to DK, and then you see what DK did to Christian Gonzalez. You start to go, okay, I see the difference.
And then you see what Surtain just did to Pickens.
Exactly. I was going to say, and then you see what Patrick Surtain did this week against George Pickens. I'm pretty sure he held Pickens to the same stat line Metcalf had. Anyways, let's continue here because we have a lot. There's fantasy across the board. We can keep going anywhere. So stop me at any point if you want. I want to touch on the kickers. This is something I've been so bullish on for a while, for years now. Kickers are completely or underappreciated. No one is valuing them properly. And if you are noticing one thing that's happening a lot this year, all of a sudden 50-yard field goals are becoming standard. We're seeing kickers kick 50+ yarders like it's nothing. But you know what, Sleaze? One guy we're not seeing make those 50-yarders, a guy that everyone says is the best kicker in football, which I've contended he isn't anymore, Justin Tucker. He's now missed another 50-yarder this week. He missed one in week 1. Guy doesn't make anything 50+. He's, I think, 1 for 7 in his last 50-yarders. And I think the rest of the league is like 26 of 27. But Tucker's missed 2. So not to hate on Justin Tucker, great kicker forever. Point being, I think in fantasy, people need to actually pay attention to the kickers a lot more because you got guys like, obviously, my guy, Brandon Aubrey in Dallas, putting up 4+ field goals made like it's nothing. The guy's lethal. If you have one of these stud kickers, you're doing damage in your fantasy leagues from a position that people are just not paying attention to. That's a distinct advantage. There are some other guys, and that's why I bring this up. I want to just mention, if you look at that Texans offense, and Kaimi Fairbairn. I mean, this guy is another guy who makes field goals from anywhere, often, all the time, on an offense that is getting you into the red zone, getting you into field goal position routinely. And it's actually, as a kicker, beneficial when they're not able to get into the end zone. But Houston has got that offense, obviously, but they have a kicker too. So pay attention there. Is there anything around the kicker? What are your thoughts? Because I feel like I'm on this island where I talk about kickers like they're being undervalued. They're not being appreciated enough. Not just it's real too. Like these kickers change the game. Like your team wins or loses mainly lots of times because the kicker either makes it or he doesn't. And we saw in the Giants game, their kicker, Graham Gano, gets out injured pregame. They're not even kicking the ball. So kickers are super important. Anything around kickers that your thoughts? Like, where do you stand on this?
I'm blown away by Kai Fairbairn breaking the NFL record with 6 50-yarders in 2 games. I think that's absolutely bananas. That's the kicker you want. If he's on your waiver wire right now, you go get him. Kickers are super undervalued in drafts, and I would have even laughed at you if you said, hey, I'm taking Aubrey in the 9th round. I'd be like, that's a waste of your pick. He's an absolute fantasy weapon. He has 20 points, 15 points a game. That is solid for your kicker all day. And another one that I'm interested in here is this Saints offense, man. I got to give it up to Kubiak. They look amazing. And I'm going to go get Blake Group just based on how fast they're moving. So, I mean, even though he had a slow game, he only had 8 points because they scored so many touchdowns. I don't see them scoring 5 touchdowns a game. I mean, that's unsustainable.
Did you, Sleeves? That's a great call right there. And that's why I asked you a question. I want to hear some more. But Sleeves, the Saints scored on their first 16 possessions this year.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
And look at Carr's numbers from last season for like his past 6 games. It's nuts. He has one interception and like 20 touchdowns.
It's crazy. It's no one. I think the Saints are the most surprising team of the surprising teams today, especially because you go into Dallas and you should put a shellacking on it. Let's talk about that Saints offense a little bit. Everybody talked about wide receiver and Chris Olave, right? But it might be time to start looking at what Rashid Shaheed is doing, right? Because this guy is super fast. I know you know about him, and I know he's a guy that was talked about for Scott Fishbowl, and as a guy, I remember our conversations about him actually. But he looks awesome. Kamara, I mean, it looks like he's 23 again. 4 touchdowns. I mean, if you've got Saints players, you're in a good position. Do you envision the Saints stuff continuing? Are we a real believer in what Clint Kubiak's doing in New Orleans, or do we think this is just an early mirage and they're going to be caught up on?
That's the question here, right? Because their first 2 games, Dallas, I didn't see them beating Dallas. Well, I took Saints in the points. I said Carr would go off. I didn't see them beating Dallas. But we're going to find out real quick what they're made of, because now they're going Philly, Atlanta, KC, Tampa in the next 4. So now you're getting 4. I mean, I didn't have the Cowboys as a legit playoffs team. These are 4 legit playoff teams to me that they're coming up against. And we'll find out what they're made of, but I think it's for real. I mean, I'm buying Carr on the wire this week if I can. I'm trying to get Blake Group if I can. And the Saints defense is playing well. I mean, they're out there. They were battling off the line, man. They were giving Dak a hell of a game. And Shaheed looks like a guy I wish I had in Scott Fish, but my Scott Fish is already done. It don't even matter. I lost Cooper Kupp. I lost CMC. I lost Ingram. It's toast.
All right. Well, it's burnt. It's I smell the burning in the I gotta be right back. I gotta turn the toast off before it burns down my house. All right, please. Okay. That was a joke, bud. You know.
Oh, I thought you'd be real. I was looking at stats, so I wasn't looking good.
I know. I'm saying you're toast, you know. You get it?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, it's over. All right, we're continuing here. By the way, thanks for everyone for joining us here on the morning after. It is week 2, morning after football. This is one of the most fun things I've conjured up over time, to be able to come on Monday morning talking football. We're going to continue to iterate and continue to grow, talking real and fantasy. We're here talking fantasy now. I want to dive into the Texans a little bit more. I talked about the kicker. We saw, I think, a clear breakdown now of how the pecking order goes at the wide receiver position for sure.
Yeah.
We've got Nico leading the league in receiving yards. And again, another big game from Nico and then Steph Diggs. What about Tank Dell though, Sleeves?
I have to suffer this. I never liked Nico Collins coming in, and I'm completely wrong here. He looks like the absolute guy on the team. Tank Dell still, he had that ball dropped across the middle, and it looked like CJ missed him on a couple throws. So Tank Dell's second in the pecking order, and I firmly believe that Stephon Diggs is number 3.
Do you feel confident? So you're confident in Tank Dell getting it together? Because when you look at the box score, which, if you're not watching the game, it looks bad, right? But we know it's early. So this is why I want to get some of these. You're confident, though, moving forward, we're going to see good more Tank Dell, better Tank Dell. And this is just sort of early season figuring it out with the new.
He's definitely one of my super buy lows for sure.
Okay. How about we go? What?
As I say, if you look at Diggs, this is Diggs' 8th game under 40 yards in his last 12.
Right.
So I don't think it's Diggs anymore. He got that 2 first touchdown game. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Diggs is back." You saw Stephon Diggs again here. I think it's gonna be Tank and Nico. And Nico, I was completely wrong on. I gotta eat that one. That one hurts. I thought it'd be the Tank show.
I'm a big Tank Dell guy myself, so I understand. At the same time, I've been a big fan of Nico. I think he's a great player that people were sleeping on. No longer can anyone sleep on him. But
I thought his value was too high.
That Houston offense, though, they've got players across the board, right? And how about the running back situation? Are we big on Joe Mixon? I know he picked up an injury, but do we think that the Joe Mixon hype and that performance from week 1 into week 2, we think he can continue if he's healthy?
For me, so I was even saying it last week. I think Joe Mixon is one of my sell highs. And I know last week everyone was pumped up on, but look at their schedule coming. It's tough defenses all the way through the next 4 games here, but the offense will, give him the volume that he's going to keep him out there, right? But the Bears defense is a top 5 defense. So I'm not really, panicked on Joe Mixon yet. They would look nasty. They were getting after CJ. That was a defensive battle game. Caleb Williams, man. What are your thoughts on this guy?
Well, he needs an offensive line, I think, is the first takeaway, right? He's he's a rookie that is coming to the league. He's got the weapons somewhat, but it doesn't matter if he has the weapons or he has the players. I mean, the way that he doesn't have any time in the pocket to even process, and he's on the move and things are out of whack, and now he's playing off a kilter. So it's going to take time. He's going to have to figure out how to make the basic plays before he can make the splash plays. I think he's looking for the splash plays a lot more often because he's so used to that in college. This is the NFL where you have to take what they're giving you before taking everything. And that offensive line has to be better. They have to give him some time protecting wise, but more importantly, because if they don't, he's not going to survive. I mean, the hits that he's been taking.
Dude, he got crushed.
I mean, time and time again, he was just taking massive shots, which I like to see his ability to just stand up, and he's taking these hits and getting back up, which at some level you have to appreciate because you can see he's a gamer. There's a lot of, he paints his fingernails and all this stuff in the preseason, but the guys out there getting destroyed by big men, good defense. I mean, the Texans had a good defensive line, and he's taking hit after hit and just getting back up and playing. And ultimately, the Texans beat the Bears. The Bears were in the game with a chance at the end. So it's going to take time, I think, for Caleb. I like Caleb as a player, but he's going to have to learn, one, how to make the short, quick, easy plays where they're giving you 7 yards, 10 yards, and just take it before trying to scramble and move. And I just haven't figured out yet how much of that is the offensive line not giving him time, and how much of that is like his mindset to try to make the big plays. He's a rookie. I'm not concerned yet. I'm more concerned about his health if they don't protect him. So they got to figure out protection a little bit more.
I agree. I mean, he looked cool, calm, and collected when he was not under pressure, but under pressure, he was a deer in the headlights, man. He was just throwing up balls, chucking them. It looked ugly.
Right. And that's why I think most importantly, he's going to have time, especially as a rookie. He's got to be able to have more time than most to process things a little bit slower, because it's going to take time for it to speed up the game. Like, the game is moving too fast. He's not going to be able to slow everything down, read protections and all this week 2 of the NFL, especially when defensive coordinators are throwing different stuff at him, trying to confuse him. And, so he needs some time. They need to have a little bit better of an offensive game plan, I think, make some easy plays for him to get him comfortable. But you like to see that he's a gamer, because that tells you that exactly. And that tells you as he grows, he's going to get better. Hey, you put out an update this morning, just a couple hours ago, around Kansas City Chiefs. I want to talk about the Chiefs, right? Because their running back, Isaiah Pacheco, big loss, big injury. He's going on IR. You talk about speed of recovery. Make sure you're checking out Sleaze on X for all the updates. But this recent one around the Chiefs. So talk to us about the Chiefs and specifically Pacheco, and what are we looking at running back now? And then look at the offense, because we want to talk about this Kansas City offense. We haven't seen Kelsey. I think he's just hanging out at Taylor concerts. We're still, Worthy's not involved in week 2 really. He gets, cornerback talks some shit about him, makes an awesome interception. Where's Worthy? So talk to us about the entire Kansas City offense, starting with Pacheco.
Kansas City offense is always going to win because the refs are always going to give them a call to win the game. This is Patrick Mahomes' 17th interception that has been called back for a flag. I saw that this morning. I thought that was priceless.
Wow. Okay.
So Pacheco status, man. I've seen a couple updates. It looks like a 10 to 12 week injury. So this is a major waiver wire move week this week. Most people are going to say that it's going to be P. Ryan because they're going to pass more, but I want the guy that's going to see the volume in the goal line work. I would go for Carson Steele. But I wouldn't leave out like a random pickup of like Kareem Hunt or Leonard Fournette here. If the injury is going to be like 10, 12 weeks, you could see, a KC reunion with Hunt, possibly. I mean, I don't know how he looks yet. I haven't seen anything, but Carson Steele and P. Ryan aren't going to do it for me. But the Chiefs, I mean, Travis Kelce is more interested in being a celebrity. He's not even out there. Patrick Mahomes still gets the win. I thought the Bengals would show up and win this game. I was like, superhuman Joe Burrow is coming this week. He did his best. Jamar Chase, I'm worried about big time. And Pacheco is just it's a tough situation. Like, who would you go for on the wire here? Steele or P. Ryan? Would you waste a lot of fab? I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence.
It's tough. I think this is one where you're at best getting sort of average numbers production if you do put one of those in your starting rosters. I guess the key would be is the PPR or not. It looks like obviously P. Ryan will be the guy catching the balls out of the backfield more. Almost like I think P. Ryan reminds me of the new age James White. He's going to be the guy for the Chiefs offense that's catching a number of balls out of the backfield, but he's not going to get too many rushes. And then you'll have to have Carson Steele if they don't pick anybody else up, getting you, maybe he gets you 10 carries a game, 12 carries a game, but I don't expect a heavy load. My question to you about Kelce is obviously he's been a non-factor through 2 weeks. People have drafted him either top tight end, second tight end. You're relying on him. Is it something where you think they're holding him back? They're going to start to unleash him throughout the season. Should we expect this? Is this the new Kelce where we just get really nothing and we'll get lucky if we start getting touchdowns? Or do you think this is just early season and he's going to come into flow?
It's Travis Kelce, right? Like every time you try and write him off, he's going to come back and do something. But man, he's played 90% snaps in both games and done nothing. I'm concerned. I mean, 7 targets and 39 yards in 2 games is not Travis Kelce numbers. He can do that in a quarter or in a half. I mean, I'm worried for sure. He's like my Terry McLaurin right now. I don't know what to do. Do I hold him? Do I start him? I need to see more. I don't feel comfortable starting him at all. 2 games is enough.
Okay. There you heard it from Sleaze himself. 2 games are enough. Get Kelce out of there. Figure out if you can get Likely or somebody else. Let's go to Detroit, because you put out a post a little while ago talking about, or yesterday, Jameson Williams. Is he the number 1? And that was, St. Brown hurt. We have to see what happens there. So is Jameson Williams the new number 1? I mean, he looked good again. What are your thoughts on the Detroit offense and Jameson Williams?
I think I missed the boat on this one, man. I missed it in best ball. I missed it in drafts. I did not think consistency would be here with this guy. And he's got freaking 20 targets in 2 games and 200 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean,
that's good.
And when I'm watching the first quarter, the first half, and Amon-Ra wasn't banged up yet, they were looking at him in the red zone. They're looking at him on 3rd down. And I was like, what is going on here? Where is the sun god? And then Amon-Ra, exploded, 5 catches in a row on one drive, which is crazy. But still, I mean, Jameson Williams is now flexible weekly. I will 100% say I was wrong on this one. He looks explosive and like an absolute fantasy weapon. And
he
you
really
got him
does.
for cheap.
Yeah, very cheap. I mean, he was not a guy that most people had on their board. And it looks like maybe what he's being able to do is take away a little bit from Sam Laporta. We haven't seen the big Sam Laporta breakouts yet. And maybe that's because now that they know, hey, we got this guy that runs like, 4.3 down the field, catches everything, is the speedster, is awesome. Let's get him the ball more. So maybe at the expense of not just Amon-Ra, but more so Sam Laporta, we're seeing a little bit more from Jameson Williams. And you had a good post about this. I want to ask you any kind of stuff you want to talk about specifically when you think about the fantasy landscape.
The only thing that I was listening to you guys start off the show that I would like want to touch on would be like the tight end overall production through 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it is terrible.
It is. We just went through Kelce, Laporta, non-existent.
Unless Kyle Pitts pops tonight, he'll be like the only one over 30 points, I believe, in half-point PPR.
Right.
Which is terrible.
So Sleaze, this ain't no easy program. I know your guy Disco's watching, so is Kyle Pitts going to pop tonight?
I like Kyle Pitts tonight. I like him over 3.5 receptions.
So are you essentially telling me that after week 2 of the NFL season, if you're correct, that we're going to be looking at like the tight end like levels, and at the top we're going to see Kyle Pitts?
I think he'll be in the top 5, which is crazy to say. Yeah.
This is why I'm saying. I mean,
let
no
me
tight
pull it up real quick.
no tight end has been more controversial over the last few years than Kyle Pitts. You either love him, you hate him, you're out, you're in. This is the year. It's next year. So if you're telling me that after week 2 we could see Kyle Pitts top 5 leading tight ends, this is big news here.
Right, it's crazy.
Yeah.
You're look at Brock Bowers, almost tight end 1. He's tight end 2 by 0.1, and you have Foster and Moreau. Obviously, on the Saints had his weird breakout game. Hunter Henry with a monster game. Like all the guys that are big guys are not doing anything. Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, Njoku's hurt. McBride had a big game. He's like tight end 4, but still, I mean, it's going to be a weird landscape this year. I feel like.
Yeah. Okay. Weird, and we're something to monitor. Pay attention to Kyle Pitts tonight. I want to quickly touch on Monday Night Football because we have the Falcons. We talked about Pitts. We've got lots of players involved from a fantasy side when you think about Monday Night Football and the Eagles. What's your thoughts? I mean, are we going to see another? I mean, Saquon going to follow up what he did in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
Do we look for a different? I mean, is Devontae without AJ Brown going to be good? I mean, what are your thoughts on looking tonight, not just on the Eagles, but also that Falcons offense? Because a lot of questions there with Drake London. You talked about Pitts. We got Bijan. So give us your little takeaway on Monday Night Football.
So with AJ Brown out, which hurts, killed a lot of my fantasy leagues, especially in Dynasty. It's going to be more of a Devonta show, but I don't know if I really like the over on him or anything like that because, dude, you got Terrell, you got Simmons, you got Bates. This is one of the best duo safeties there is. They played great week 1 versus Steelers. I know that, Steelers offense isn't the same as the Eagles, but with AJ Brown out, I think it's going to be a full Saquon show, and I think it's going to be a full Bijan show. It's going to be the Saquon Bijan game here. I didn't like what I saw from Kirk Cousins in week 1. I need to see better. This Philly secondary can be toasted, but no AJ, I think they'll get more opportunities. Do I like Drake London? Yeah. I mean, I always like Drake London, but I hope he shows up. He can't do a Terry McLaurin 2-week ghost on me here in this game. But I think you're going to see a lot more Jalen Hurts rushing in this game too.
Okay. That's going to hurt.
I don't know who I like to win though. I'm pulling for the Falcons, but I think the Eagles win, but I'm pulling for the Falcons. I think it's a grunge game too.
Yeah, well, and quite frankly, I talked about it earlier on the program that 0-2 teams struggle to make the playoffs. People don't realize this is a big hole to put yourself 0-2. Falcons specifically have a chance to go 0-2. It's not going to be pretty because the Falcons are playing Kansas City in week 3. I don't know. It's going to get real weird. It's going to get real weird. Real
schedule gets easy though, right? Down the stretch. Oh no, it doesn't. They get Saints, Tampa.
Exactly. As you start to look at the schedule where you thought preseason is now different, and
because the teams are balling out, right? It didn't look good to start. Yeah.
Exactly. And so if you're the Falcons, tonight is a massive game, not just from the wins loss, but it's like you spent all this money on Kirk, you bring him in, is he healthy? You got all these weapons, and you got this rookie quarterback that you drafted 8. And if you go 0-2, you're going to Kansas City, you're playing Kansas City in week 3. It can get real weird for Atlanta fans, their organization, real quick here. So tonight is a massive game for the Atlanta Falcons and their organization and the
if they
future.
lose to the Chiefs, they prop out Penix. Or they bring out Penix.
I don't know. I can't. Here's the one thing I'll say. I've been monitoring this Atlanta organization for years now. They chose to not sign. They chose not to go acquire Lamar Jackson 2 years ago because they were confident in Desmond Ridder. Didn't make sense.
That's ridiculous.
They chose to go and get a new coach named Raheem Morris instead of Bill Belichick. Didn't understand that. They traded. They spent all that money to sign Kirk Cousins, and then they drafted number 8 Michael Penix. I can tell you this. The one thing I don't know is what the Atlanta Falcons organization is doing. And so my point is just this, that if they're 0-2, you start hearing all the noise. You start hearing it in the building. And you're going to Kansas City or you're playing Kansas City in week 3. It gets real weird, real quick. Who knows what will happen? I wouldn't be so shocked if we see Penix tonight, even for a play or two. I think if nothing else, get him on the field and give a different look. Change up the vibes. Like there could be something fun to have him in for a play or two. If it's going to help you. And certainly they need help if what we saw in week 1 continues. So I don't know, but yeah, I think Penix coming to fruition could be something more soon than people expected if they don't figure out how to win with Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins didn't look fully healthy in week 1. That mobility wasn't there. Okay, don't need a pick from you. We got a couple minutes left here, and we're going to get you out. And it's been another fantastic morning here in the morning after football program week 2. I want to give you a minute because nobody all over the digital landscape was bigger on this guy. And obviously, I want to talk about my team for a second here, and that's Devon Achane, right? You are leading the caboose. You are the conductor. So I want to give you a minute or two to just give us your kind of takeaways with the updated information, knowing that obviously Tua was out. He probably doesn't play in the next week, and who knows how long until he plays. But more importantly, we saw Achane get a ton of carries, and he looked awesome. So where do you stand with the Achane stuff in Miami?
Right where I did at the beginning of the season, man. He's going to be on the most championship rosters this season if he stays healthy. And I think now with the Tua situation, and man, prayers up. I don't even know if he should come back. I know he says he wants to come back, but dude, it looks rough for him. I don't know what he's doing diving headfirst when you can slide. But Achane now, I mean, if you lose Tua, you got Mostert being old. They're not going to use him if the season starts to get lost. They're just going to feed this guy like crazy, and he's just going to go absolutely bananas. I mean, I can't wait to just go nuts on Twitter with it every day. But the Dolphins, man, Huntley. Actually, what do you think on Huntley? Is this going to help? Skylar Thompson's not the answer.
It can't hurt. I've seen Skylar Thompson enough. Here's my thing. I was going to say I had a post that I don't think I ever posted, but Skylar Thompson is the Malik Willis of the AFC, which is not a good thing. Okay. Just so you guys understand, before this week, Malik Willis had never thrown a touchdown. He did throw a short touchdown pass to Dontavian Wicks. Love Wicks, but that was, lucky. The Green Bay Packers ran 53 plays rushing the ball. They had 14 pass plays. My point is Skylar Thompson is not the answer. So when you say, what do I think about Huntley? Hey, I think about Huntley because he's not Skylar Thompson. Right. Can't hurt. We'll monitor the situation and prayers up to Tua. But as you said, Achane, your main guy coming in, you're giving it up still. Most championship rosters. I'm glad I got a lot of Achane. Hopefully he stays healthy, as we say, with a lot of players as well.
Are you trying to sell or keep Tua or Reek and Waddle? Would be my question.
I think it depends what you're getting. I'm not, it obviously you have to downgrade Tyreek from sort of overall wide receiver 1 possibilities to like back end wide receiver 1, maybe. It depends who they have, right? Because I think Tyreek's still a great receiver if he can get him the ball, but they're going to change the game plan. But I still like Reek. I just don't like him where he was. So it depends what you can get from him. I'm not going to sell him off for nothing. That makes no sense. And then Waddle, I think Waddle doesn't get affected as much because I just think that Waddle is sort of this guy in the middle there where it could still work for him in a similar fashion, maybe a little downgrade, lower end wide receiver 2 area. But it depends who's going to be the quarterback. And quite frankly, based on what I'm hearing and reading, I think Tua is going to come back sooner than people expect, probably in a couple of weeks. Whether or not, anybody thinks he shouldn't. As I said at the top of the program, I think everyone can give suggestions, but that's the best we can do. I'm not here to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. Obviously, I think he should put on a guardian cap. That'd be my one suggestion at minimum. But yes, learn how to slide and please try to stay healthy. And quite frankly, I want to just address a comment here. Tua is a Pats killer. Don't worry. Every Dolphin is a Pats killer. You remember Ronnie Brown? I can continue with the Pats killing, but that's okay. Just because the Pats won 1 week doesn't mean they're all of a sudden coming. Anyways, that's for another program. Shout out to everyone with the comments.
A little interesting too that Jonnu Smith was involved more than I thought. I thought you'd bring some up on that too, especially with the backup quarterback now. I think he's an interesting ad.
Yeah, you talked about tight end as a wasteland, and Jonnu Smith was involved a decent amount. I've tried to block out the entire Dolphins game from week 2, so I'm not trying to continue with it. But yeah, Jonnu Smith, an interesting tight end ad, a guy that I thought was a sleeper coming in and could be even more impactful now with a different quarterback. But we have to monitor who's going to be starting because it's different. Huntley's more of a running guy. Skylar's just not going to run the ball at all. We'll have to see what happens there. Okay, Sleaze, we've got week 3 on the horizon. Because after Monday Night Football, it's already prepping. I know you're going to start putting out everything for week 3. So give us, something about week 3 to look forward to, some of your favorite things that we should be watching for to get us ready and anticipation of the week that's coming up.
So for week 3, Well, first I got to get through like my waiver wire rankings and all that stuff. But week 3, the thing I'm looking forward to here is to see if Derek Carr could do it again. I mean, I'm on the bandwagon. I'm here for it. I cannot believe he's done it twice. I think he's going to be an absolute waiver wire stud, and we're talking MVP right now. This is legit. Like, Derek Carr was not drafted. He wasn't ranked in the top 20 on anyone. Everyone wrote him off, and this is like the story that I'm very, very interested in here is the Saints here.
Wow.
Like, I'm plugged into this game.
Sleaze, you are plugged in everything. That's why I love having you on the program and love being a friend and connecting with you. It's funny because right here on my notes, the last line I had Saints are good with a question mark.
Yeah, are they? Yeah,
I'm trying to. It's one of those confusing moments where you have to like go, wait, is this real? Are we watching it? Derek Carr MVP, fantasy just dominance. I mean, Alvin Kamara. The Kamara 4 touchdown game in week 2 brought me back to that playoff week in fantasy. What, like 3-4 years ago, where he went bananas. I think he had 6 touchdowns or something. Remember,
Dude, they were trying to give him another one at the end. They were up 40. I was like, get him out of the game. He's good.
I know. Yeah.
Jesus.
So, but hey, look, I love football. You love football. We love seeing good football. It's fun to see, even if it's not your guys. Everybody's involved, not just from a fandom standpoint when it comes to real football, but fantasy. That's where we get to be the owners, the managers, the coaches. We get to make the decisions that we get to argue and yell about from the real teams in our league. So it's always fun to break it down with you, with the crew, with everybody that breaks all of it down. Shout out to everyone with comments today. A fantastic week of football. I hope everyone has a good time tonight on Monday Night Sleaze. I want to give you a chance to, again, for the last time, share where everything is coming out. What's your next content piece? You're doing waiver wires. When should we expect this stuff?
So thanks for having me on the show, man. Amazing. I'll come back anytime on Monday for the after show, anytime you want. So my mind is a weapon, fantasy football and sleazeball FF. You can find me across every single platform. Today, probably after the game, I'll start working on the waiver wires. I'll start putting my rankings together, and then I'll do my start sits, bounce backs, and my must start players. And then we need to get some shows going. Like I got Friday and Saturday open. So you just let me know.
Sleaze, anytime I can appear in conversation with you, I learn, I enjoy, we have fun. As I said, guys, nobody that I've met over the past year is doing more fantasy football content, doing better fantasy football content, prepping you, giving you what could, what would, what should happen, and then standing on it, whether it's good or bad. And I love the passion. I love how you break it down and you're there, good and bad. And you keep it honest, real, and seriously, one of the most knowledgeable sports guys I know. So it's such a fun time having you on. Again, make sure you're following him at Sleazeball on X. And of course, My Mind is a Weapon fantasy football show on YouTube, routinely, X, all the platforms. We'll have you back certainly down the road. Good luck this week. Good luck tonight. I'll talk to you soon, my guy.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for having me. So what a pleasure it was to not just have Sleazeball right there talking fantasy football. I gave you some really good, interesting nuggets. I think it's important to remember, focus on the tight end position, focus on, the waivers there. Think about some of the names he mentioned. We talked about wide receivers a little bit, quarterback Derek Carr, pay attention to. Follow his stuff because he puts out some really interesting data and stuff when he's saying this is the guy that you want, not so on and so forth. All right, guys, I think I'm good. We did 90 plus minutes of football the morning after week 2, the NFL season. And it was such a joy to talk football with my guy Sleazeball just now when it's fantasy. My guy Darrell Bush on Real NFL broke down the Philadelphia Atlanta game tonight on Monday Night Football. It was an exciting week 2 for some of you. Hopefully for more of us, we'll be excited in week 3. They'll be back next week to do another the morning after Monday, the 23rd of September. Be there or just be square. But either way, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on X. We stream live today to X, to YouTube. We're going to move to more platforms next week. Hopefully get more people the ability to see the show. Appreciate the different viewers from the different platforms. We got over 600. It's time to go. My work is done. Week 3 is on the horizon. Week 2 is finishing up tonight. Atlanta, Philadelphia. Thanks so much. Check out my content and myself at Mike Rippey on X. And of course, my 9 major keys from the week that was in a segment I call Box Score Breakdown. It's out now. You can learn a little bit by looking there, and you can learn a lot by following me across platforms. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, guys.